Hello everyone, welcome to NoDQ Video here on NoDQ.com, as well as the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. I got your questions today from twitter.com/AaronRiftNoDQ using the hashtag NoDQTurns20. Let's go ahead and get started today. First question comes from James V. What are your thoughts of Impact Wrestling allowing WWE to use licensed content of the Hardys' run with the company? Will this open the door for footage of Samoa Joe and TNA to end up on the network? Possibly. I think not only Samoa Joe, but also AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, and the list goes on. Let's face it, a lot of guys like AJ and Samoa Joe and Bobby Roode, they spent most of their careers in TNA. And guys like Kurt Angle actually spent more time in TNA than he did during his first WWE run. Tag teams like the Dudleys, they spent more years in TNA/Impact Wrestling than WWE and ECW. WWE has gotten the license to use Impact Wrestling footage of the Hardys. I'm assuming that this footage will be used on future WWE releases and perhaps even shown on WWE television and the WWE network. For the longest time, Vince McMahon has been against the idea of acknowledging TNA's existence, but I think you have to, because a lot of guys that are currently in WWE and a lot of WWE legends spent some significant time in TNA/Impact Wrestling and had some great matches. You have to be able to use that footage and acknowledge the history. Whether WWE ends up buying Impact Wrestling sometime down the line, that remains to be seen. But for the time being, it's not like Impact Wrestling is significant competition, and whatever money Impact Wrestling gets from WWE to use that footage, I doubt it's going to help Impact Wrestling to the point where they're going to be competing with WWE. So I think it's a win-win situation for everybody, and it's not going to make TNA any more of a threat to WWE by WWE giving them the recognition and acknowledging that, yes, this promotion did exist and actually was instrumental in developing the careers of guys that are currently WWE superstars. And I got this question here from Jeremiah Dorset on this topic. What are your thoughts on WWE buying Impact Wrestling? I think this is a what-if question. I'm assuming it's a what-if question, and you did not read something incorrectly. And that is not people upstairs having sex. That's construction, by the way. For those of you wondering, if you hear occasional noises, they're doing outside construction. Not much I can do about it unless I wanted to tape it some off hour in the middle of the night or whatever. But anyways, to answer the question, I don't know if WWE will buy Impact Wrestling. My gut feeling is eventually it will probably happen. I feel like Impact Wrestling will not be able to sustain its business model forever. But then again, nothing is forever. Nothing lasts forever. Eventually, everyone dies. Eventually, every business will go under. Nothing can remain sustainable indefinitely. One of these days, I think, if I had to make a prediction, and I'm sorry I'm so morbid, by the way, about the death stuff. Eventually, one day, I believe WWE will purchase the intellectual property that is Impact Wrestling and own the tape libraries and all that stuff. Will it happen in the immediate future? I don't foresee that. It seems like Impact Wrestling is at least stable. They're on Pop TV. As long as they have the Pop TV deal, I think they'll be able to somehow, with a very low budget, be able to stay in business and continue running as a small promotion that does their tapings, 6 in a row in 1 week, does an occasional pay-per-view, and that's about it. They have their Global Force Network, whatever it's called. So I think it will happen eventually, but WWE, if they're going to You know, they're acquiring the rights to use the Hardys footage in WWE, going back to that previous question. And if WWE continues to have that kind of a working relationship with Impact Wrestling, then in the end, it won't really matter. I mean, WWE buying Impact Wrestling, I mean, what would it even mean? I mean, the one valuable thing that Impact Wrestling has is the tape library. And if WWE can get the rights to use it, then there's really no need to try and buy the intellectual property and buy whatever there is of the company. Got this one here from It's the Costanza. Wherein Triple H took over control of 205 Live, does this mean that you will be invested to see what goes on and watch the division? Well, here comes the unpopular answer of the day. The answer is probably not. I may try to check it out, but I did not even watch the Cruiserweight Classic. I watched a few of the matches, but for the most part, I just watched a few highlights, and that was it. For those of you that don't know, I'm a sports entertainment guy. I like character development. Now, with that being said, I think the Cruiserweight division should be presented the way fans of the Cruiserweights want to see it, and that's having those guys go out there and do all the crazy moves, be high-flying, and that sort of fast-paced, action-packed wrestling that you come to expect from the Cruiserweights. That's what it should be. I think trying to do characters and that sort of thing, it can only go so far with the Cruiserweights. You got to let them do what brings them to the dance, in my opinion. I also find a hard time believing that the Cruiserweights are still going to be a focal point in the long run. When it comes down to it, where is this Cruiserweight tournament final going to happen on the WrestleMania card? Is it going to be on the main card, or is it going to be on the kickoff? And if it's on the kickoff, why get invested? Why spend so much time watching the tournament when it's just going to be in a kickoff match at WrestleMania? If WWE doesn't feel it's important enough to be on the main card, why should I even bother? That's my question about the whole thing. So I am going to proceed with caution in terms of getting invested in 205 Live again. This one comes from Shamrocks. Hey Aaron, so what the hell are they going to do now with Dolph Ziggler? They blew up his comeback at the Royal Rumble. So what's next? What would you prefer, him disappearing for a while again or going for the US Championship again? Honestly, I like Dolph Ziggler, but I think maybe it's time to move on. I think maybe it's time for Dolph Ziggler to explore other options. Now, maybe he's happy with his current role in WWE, but it feels like as a character, he has really gotten stale, and I feel like it's almost to the point of no return for him, where the crowd has just really lost interest in him. People are not invested in Dolph Ziggler anymore, and I'm not sure what can be done. He's had so many start and stop pushes that I feel like people just don't care anymore. Ziggler could get a big push, and I don't even know if people will react to it, especially after this Royal Rumble return. You know, he was gone for 5 or 6 weeks. He comes back, and he's eliminated right away. He's number 30, and he's only in the match for a few minutes, and that was it. Why care about Dolph Ziggler? Again, if the company doesn't care about the guy, why should the viewers care about the guy? That's just how I see it. I feel like maybe he would be better off in New Japan or doing the indies. But again, I can't speak for him. Maybe he's happy with his current role. Maybe he's getting a nice pay bump in WWE. I don't know what the situation is with him. But as far as being a character goes and his ability to regain lost momentum, I don't know if that can happen. I don't know if Dolph Ziggler will ever be able to reach the level he was once at in WWE. This one comes from Mr. Yuck. Do you think crowds will boo or chant for Enzo when Big Cass returns? Should the 7-foot-tall guy be repackaged? Heel or face? Or might the case halt things altogether for him? That's a very valid question. I think when Enzo does return, enough time will have passed where I don't see the fans chanting for Enzo. I mean, the fans are already not chanting for Enzo. It's not like he's CM Punk where the fans keep chanting for him. There may be an issue with Enzo being guilty by association where fans might chant Enzo or reference Enzo because Big Cass had that association with him. When I bring back Big Cass, what would I do with him? I think I would change up his look a little bit, make him look a little bit different, so he's not the same looking guy that he was when he was teaming up with Enzo, for one thing. Just like when Sheamus returned, even though he had the stupid haircut, at least it was something different. Maybe cut his hair or grow out his beard more, or there's any number of things that he could do to change his look up. Maybe wear long tights. I mean, there's different things you can do. Change the color scheme of his tights, his entrance, his Titantron. Lots of little things you can do. And maybe change his music. I thought his music was terrible, by the way. So I'm hoping when he does come back, CFOs have enough time, since there's no more Jim Johnston. Hopefully CFOs can come up with something good for Big Cass. And obviously using Enzo's music, I think that would be too much of an association with Enzo, and I don't think that would be a good thing. So just come up with something cool for him and change up his look a little bit. And my gut feeling is he'll be all right, and he's not going to get the Enzo chance, and he'll be able to break off on his own and do his own thing. Maybe he needs a mouthpiece. Maybe he needs a guy like Paul Heyman or somebody else to speak for him and get him over. So there's a lot of things you can do with the guy. And as far as a heel or a face, that's a great question. I think a heel initially, since he hasn't been established enough as a legend, I don't think the fans will react overwhelmingly positive to him when he comes back, because they don't really associate him as a legend or a guy that's really paid his dues in WWE. So I think you could bring him back as a heel and just let him be a dominant 7-foot monster that he can be. Got this one here from Harvey. Not Harvey Whippleman, but at Sinners Club 90 or Sinner Club 90. Has SmackDown Live, I think is what he's trying to say. Has SmackDown Live really lost momentum in comparison to last year? What superstars would you swap over for the Superstar Shakeup whenever it happens? I would have Rollins, Bayley, and Balor Club all go to SmackDown, with Balor Club turning heel. Very interesting with the Balor heel turn. Again, I don't know how I feel about that. But then again, Balor hasn't really been doing much lately, and maybe he needs some kind of change. I mean, I think him smiling all the time, like Apollo Crews, I think it maybe rubs people the wrong way sometimes, and people think he's too happy-go-lucky and he needs more of an edge. Maybe he does need a heel turn. Rollins, I agree with 100%. I see Seth Rollins definitely as a guy. You know, we did have the Shield reunion. Didn't really go as well as WWE had planned. I could see one of the Shield members going to SmackDown. Shouldn't be Ambrose, since Ambrose was on SmackDown for so long. Reigns is unlikely to jump to SmackDown. So that leaves Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins would definitely benefit from jumping to SmackDown. And as far as women that really don't have momentum right now, Bayley would definitely benefit. And who would you trade her with? If you send Bayley over to SmackDown, who from SmackDown will go to Raw? That's a great question. Maybe Naomi would be a good choice. Maybe Natalya. People that have been part of SmackDown since the brand extension started. Just to, you know, as it's called, a superstar shakeup. Shake things up a little bit. This one comes from Sean T. Flick. What do you think of Randy Orton as Bobby Roode's opponent for WrestleMania? He seems to have no direction at the moment. I like the idea if Randy Orton is not facing somebody from Monday Night Raw like a Finn Balor or a Samoa Joe, then yeah, I think as far as potential SmackDown opponents go, Bobby Roode would be a great choice. I mean, Bobby Roode should definitely be in a big match at WrestleMania. He's the United States champion. You're going to have that special moment, 70,000 people doing the glorious, singing along with him when he comes out. That's going to be a huge entrance. I think Bobby Roode should definitely be in a high-profile match. Randy Orton would be that guy. I think it would be a great choice for WrestleMania and a great choice for Randy Orton. and hopefully they can actually have an intense match and it's just not a bunch of headlocks. I mean, the thing about Bobby Roode is people are saying, you know, the guy's kind of boring, and some people say that about Randy Orton too, that he does too many headlocks and his matches aren't that inspiring. He doesn't do a lot. So I'm curious as to what kind of match those two guys would have if they would be able to tear the house down. Now, they may just end up having an opening match for the U.S. title at WrestleMania, and it's a 10-minute match, and there's not going to be much to it. That very well could be the case, but if built up correctly, and if those guys have the right kind of match, it could definitely be something really good for WrestleMania. And on paper, it sounds like it would be a good match with the star power and the entrances and whatnot, but it's all about the execution. Could WWE and those guys pull off something memorable? That's a big question mark. This one comes from TJS, moderator for the NoDQ live videos, as well as a moderator over at NoDQForums.com. Check it out. We have over 40,000 members and counting now. A lot of trolls, but we also have a lot of good discussion as well. Fun time. Life is too short for negativity. You go on NoDQForums.com, you have a good time, people laugh, and life is all about laughing and having fun. So head over there, NoDQForums.com. Now, on to TJS's question. But before I get to the question, let me take a sip of my NoDQ lotion here real quick. Man, that hits the spot. NoDQ lotion, gotta love it. TJS says, why are people complaining about Shinsuke's recent promos? He kept it short and sweet by saying, I'm going to beat you at WrestleMania, and I think it's great. Same with the knee to the face. Mind games are part of his shtick. Thoughts on the build so far? I'm fine with it. I can understand there being some disconnect because Shin is Japanese, and, you know, some people might compare him to Funaki or Kaientai, and that's that whole stereotype. But I feel like he's charismatic enough where he can get away with it, and I think it's best to have him just cut short promos. He definitely shouldn't be out there cutting 10-minute promos. Let him just come out there and say, I'm going to beat you in his broken English, and just let his persona, his charisma, and his moves do the talking. Just like Goldberg in WCW. He didn't say much. He just went out there and kicked some butt. And I think that's what Shin should be doing, going out there and kicking butt and taking names as only he can. Got this one here from Aaron Riff's Cat. Nice username there, buddy. I know you push for compelling storylines in WWE, but do you think the problem with that stems from no compelling characters? Everyone is just a wrestler and nothing more, as you can line them all up and most of them hardly stand out from the other. This is a very valid point. You definitely need some interesting characters in order to have interesting storylines. So the foundation of what you need to have an entertaining television show, first and foremost, you need interesting characters. If you don't have interesting characters, then you have nothing to work with. A great show like Breaking Bad, it starts with Walter White and then Jesse Pinkman and those other characters that are really intriguing, and then you develop a storyline from those characters and build from there. So I agree with you. You definitely need to have interesting characters in order to have interesting matches, interesting storylines, and so forth. The characters are not very compelling in WWE. It's hard to really define what they are, and I wish WWE would go back to having characters that can be very clearly defined, you know, maybe people that are a special kind of character, like the $1 Million Man, the rich guy, Razor Ramon based off of Scarface, or Val Venus, the porn star. You know, have those types of characters. What is Seth Rollins? He's the architect? What is that? He wears nitro fire pants to the ring. So I'm not really sure what his character is exactly. At least when he was a heel, you know, he was the ass kisser corporate guy, so you could put him in that category. But now he's just a guy that comes out and does moves and has a cool entrance song, Burn It Down, yada, yada, yada. And that's about it. And some guys that do have a little bit of character development, it's very watered down, like a Dean Ambrose. He's the lunatic fringe. But what what kind of lunatic is he? He's not like Brian Pillman where he's crazy, where you really think that this guy is out of his mind. No, he's basically a guy that comes out there and has a potted plan and does comedy. Roman Reigns is the big dog. I mean, Roman Reigns' character is basically just a superhero. That's what he is. He's a superhero. He's like Superman or Batman, just like John Cena. That's why I always say Roman Reigns is John Cena 2.0 or Hulk Hogan 3.0, because they're basically a superhero type character. That's what Roman Reigns is. You know, Superman punch. He's got the big logo on his chest. Come on, that's what he is. So he's got a little bit of character development. But a lot of these guys in WWE really don't have much character development. And I think it would benefit to go back to the older eras, going back to the Golden Era and the Attitude Era, and make characters that are based off of professions, you know, like a taxman, IRS, or something like that, just so these guys do have characters, and then you can develop storylines with these characters. You know, with $1 Million Man trying to buy the WWE title. That was a great storyline back in 87, 88, when Hogan, you know, this is a few days ago was the 30-year anniversary of Andre beating Hogan, and then Andre surrendering the tag team championship, as he called it, the world title actually, to Ted DiBiase. That was an awesome storyline, and that was based off of Ted DiBiase's character, using his character to build up a storyline based off of his character and what his character was trying to do. So I would like to see more of that in WWE, no doubt. This one comes from Samish. Hey Aaron, with all due respect to Japanese and Chinese wrestlers, but do you think their inability to speak fluent English could be a hindrance to them to succeed in WWE? This actually goes back to that earlier question from TJS regarding Shinsuke Nakamura. I think it can hurt to a degree. I think there is some disconnect, and I think that might be why people like myself and others might have a hard time getting into New Japan because of the whole language barrier. I think in WWE, it's okay to have a few guys like that, like Nakamura, like Asuka, as long as you make them credible and you don't have them being comedic figures. You know, I was talking about Kai and Tai earlier. If WWE started doing too much comedy with Nakamura and the fact that he can't speak English very well, then that might cause him to lose some credibility with the fans. But, you know, guys have gotten over in wrestling without cutting great promos. Goldberg did it. Sting did it. Not a lot of guys in WWE, because Vince McMahon and the people running the company have this idea that you have to have layers, that you have to have a really interesting character. But it's not always the case. I mean, like I said, with the Cruiserweight question, you have to go with what brings people to the dance. If a guy is a great promo, then focus on his promos. If the guy is a great wrestler, focus on his wrestling. Showcase their strengths and hide their weaknesses, as Paul Heyman would say. And that's what you got to do for success, and hopefully you can come up with the most optimized characters and personas possible. That'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ Video. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate your support and viewership. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest, and I will see you guys next time.